Action.
Hi, and welcome to Cooking with Via Melissa. On today's episode of Juice Your Veggies and Eat Them Too, I'm going to be cooking up a delicious, organic, and all-natural chicken Francese with a sprinkle of juiced veggies at the end just to give it some more nutrition and flavor in the dish. So, the first thing that I'm going to do while cooking up my Francese is dice an onion. So I'm just slicing up some onions, and the first thing that I'm going to do is saute the onions in my ceramic cookware with a little bit of olive oil and butter. So I'm going to cook this for about 5 minutes just to kind of give the pan some flavor. And I've recently switched over to ceramic pots lately because you don't even really need oil technically. I'm just using the oil to kind of give the dish some flavor so that when I start to cook the chicken, it'll kind of have that buttery, oily, and garlic flavor infused into the chicken before I make my Francese sauce. So let's cook up the onions and move on to the next step. So while those onions are cooking, I'm going to take the chicken and throw it in some flour. The flour that I'm using today is a combination of amaranth and spelt. So they're whole grain, nutritious flours, but they also don't have any gluten in it, so it gives for a little bit more nutritional value. I'm going to throw a little bit of salt and a little bit of garlic into the flour before mixing it up. Alright, so as the chicken cooks down, let me just saute it a little bit. I can smell the aroma of the butter and the oil and the onions just all starting to come to play already. Gonna be a good one. Alright, so these onions are looking good. So what I'm gonna do is take them out of the pan, and then they will get added back into the dish later. Whoop, that little guy got away. Alright, so now I'm going to take my chicken and put it in my seasoned flour and start to throw it on the pan. Oh, let me put that back on. So typically when you're making chicken cutlets, you put it in an egg wash, but for a Francese, you don't really need to do that. You just have to pat the chicken dry, and then you get the flour to stick directly to it without needing an egg wash. And that's the first one. So after I get all these bad boys on there, I'm going to put a dab of butter on each piece, and then I'm going to sear each side for about 3 minutes, and then I'll start to build my Francese sauce. So the chicken that I'm using today is actually not chicken breasts. I'm using chicken thighs. And the reason for that is there's actually a lot more vitamins and nutrients in the dark meat than there is in the white meat. But the biggest benefit of it is the texture. So normally when you do this with chicken breasts, you need to pound them down to make them more tender. The thighs are actually more tender and they hold the juices in a lot better. So when the dish is done, it's just a much moister, tender, and juicier piece of meat once completed. You can already hear that sizzle. Alright, so here's my last floured piece. Got all my chicken on there. Now, I'm going to top it with a little bit of salt, a little bit of garlic, all the spices that I'm using today are 100% organic. I love to use Simply Organic. Their spices are extremely flavorful, and they really have a wide variety, so you can have an entire repertoire of different cuisines in your cabinet, all of organic spices. And this that I'm putting on is an all-purpose seasoning, just to give it some more flavor. So I just kind of sprinkle it on to blanket the entire dish. And the last thing that I'm going to do is just cut up little cubes of my salted organic butter, just to give it that Francese taste. Just throw one little cube on each piece. Whoop, that guy got away. Okay. So now that my chicken has been on here for about 3 to 4 minutes, I'm going to start flipping them over. And then they're going to cook for about another 3 to 4 minutes on the other side before I start putting in my Francese sauce. There you go. It's starting to sear and look nice and golden brown. It's getting in all the flavors. It's going to be a scrumptious dish. Alright, this chicken is sizzling, rocking and rolling. It is ready to get some Francese sauce filled on top of it. So the first thing I'm going to do is pour in some organic free-range chicken broth. Hear that baby sizzle. Getting all the chicken covered up. Then I'm actually going to use the remaining flour. This will help the broth to thicken and come to a nice sauce. Stir that up. That'll cook down as the dish cooks down anyway. Also going to add the onions back in. Give it some nice flavor. All the buttery, oily texture of the onions. And then the dish won't be complete with a little bit of twist that I put on it, which is some fresh rosemary and thyme. Love cooking with my fresh herbs. And then, of course, it's not a Francese without some lemon on it. Some organic, fresh squeezed lemon into the dish. So it's basically done. What's going to happen is the broth is going to come to a boil. I'm going to cover the dish, and then it's going to cook up for the next 20 minutes. Let the sauce thicken up with that extra flour, and it's good to go. So while my chicken Francese cooks up, I'm actually going to be making a nice quinoa to go on the side of it, quinoa with some beans in it. And once the dish finishes, I'm actually going to be adding in some juice veggies. So I'll also be making a greens juice, which you can see in one of my other clips on Juice Your Veggies and Eat Them Too. And you're going to do just that. I'm going to juice my vegetables, but I'm going to eat them too with my juice veggie pulp leftovers. So let's see this bad boy cook up. And we'll see the dish complete in about 15 to 20. Alright, looks like my chicken Francese is finally done. Smells delicious. So, to top off the dish, I'm just going to do a sprinkle of some juiced veggies, just to give it a little bit more binder and a little extra fiber and some flavor. Alright, so now I'm actually going to plate my dish up. First, I'm going to throw a little bit of couscous on the dish. Then I'm going to top it with a piece of chicken. Throw some of that delicious sauce all over it. And I'll throw in a little sprig of my rosemary. Let's make it look pretty. And voila! You have some organic and healthy chicken Francese over couscous with a little bit of juice veggie leftovers. So, I'm your host, Via Melissa, and tune in next time to juice your veggies and eat them too.